Good morning, saints. How are you? What a worship time. We have spent the last few days not just talking about being face to face with Jesus, but actually being face to face with Jesus. Is that right? My favorite part of this gathering, and really my whole history with 24/7, is we love the presence of God. The presence of God is our privilege. It is our greatest prize. It is our inheritance. And when we come into the presence of God, I'm so thankful for everyone who has ushered us in with beautiful teaching. And then the encounter spaces all over this room, stories we'll never know about of how Jesus is intimately calling you by name and meeting you. Has he met you in the last 2 days? Face to face is a reality, not just a theory. And when we come face to face with Jesus, we begin to carry his pleasure. And we start to carry his pain. Amen? And we start to carry his dreams. And I haven't been able to shake this character in the Bible for at least a year. His name is Nehemiah. How many of you love Nehemiah? Let's just refer to him as normal Nehemiah. Everyone say normal Nehemiah. Normal Nehemiah, the cupbearer to the king. His job was to take a cup and drink it down and hope he doesn't die. What a job, right? Normal Nehemiah. Normal Nehemiah, cupbearer to the king, a servant to the king. Nehemiah heard a report of his people. The people of Israel were in exile. There was a small remnant that went back to the land of Jerusalem and Judea in that area. And Nehemiah heard a report that the walls lie in ruin. His people, the remnant, were suffering. And something happened in normal Nehemiah. Normal Nehemiah, the cupbearer to the king, began to carry a broken heart and a burning heart. What was lying in ruins began to ruin him on the inside. I think I'm sitting in a room of normal Nehemiahs who have been practicing being servants to the king. You've been drinking the cup of the king, and this is what you've been practicing. Will you become those who drink the cup with the king named Jesus? Wasn't that what he said to the disciples? Will you drink this cup with me? And I have to hesitate before answering that question. But something happened in normal Nehemiah, cupbearer to the king. When he heard the report, his heart began to break, and it says he wept. I want to honor those in the room who have borne witness to what Jesus sees every day. And like Tyler said, you're beginning to share the tears of a king named Jesus. He's been weeping through you. You've been drinking the cup with him. And it's breaking your heart, but that's not the end of the story. Something's beginning to burn. It says, Nehemiah went night and day, he began to pray. I think we're all at home with normal Nehemiah, right? Nehemiah 1, this normal guy who had a normal job, who wasn't supposed to be a priest or an intercessor, all of a sudden caught the pain of God in the face of the people. Face to face, like we've heard. He saw the suffering and it broke his heart wide open. And the only response was weeping and then praying. Weeping and then praying. Weeping and then praying. I want to honor you. I'm sitting with a bunch of weeping prayers. I want to acknowledge you before the Lord, and I want to honor you. You would not be here if you didn't catch the burden of the king. I love you. I feel so at home with you. Something got a hold of Nehemiah in the deepest place. What is the pain that moves your heart to tears and then to prayers? Friends, I think there's a groan rising in this room. And I want to permission you to let it be a little messy, like Hannah weeping out of desperation. You have permission to encounter Jesus off script of anything I'm saying. I pray the words I speak are spirit and life, and they create environments of encounter. I pray that even as I'm speaking, the Spirit of God would begin to rise something up out of the wellspring of your gut that has been hiding there as you've been drinking the cup with the King. For me, what breaks my heart and moves me to prayers for the last 20 years is the racial injustice in my city. The Father moved me into a neighborhood where no one looks like me. I did not feel welcome. I've lived there for over 20 years. But living amongst people, I started to realize the pain of the people. Every day when I watched my neighbor throw his wife into the glass door and just beat her, and something began to happen to me. Sin is not a theory. It's something that breaks your guts open until you drink the cup with the King. I'm just a normal guy living in a neighborhood, but something got a hold of me. The racial injustice, one street that divides us, 98% African American on one side, 98% white on the other side, for 10 miles. And it began to break my heart. This is not right. And tears flow from that place. Kids who don't have dads in Section 8 apartments next to my house. 100 units, I couldn't find one marriage when I went door to door. Something began to break in my heart. God got a hold of me with weeping for the state of the church. So many unity movements in Kansas City, and they all can't be unified with each other. Something began to break in my heart. 18 unity movements that don't have unity. And honestly, the amount of times I want to give up, I can't even tell you. And the schools. We're in a movement where a man named Pete saw young people rising out of the Atlas. I've been doing this 20 years. It is time for young people to rise out of the Atlas. There is devastation in our schools right now. It's not a joke. I know I'm being a little intense. I like to have fun too, but Nehemiah, he's weeping, he's praying night and day. And I see you, saints, here. Nehemiah's tears and prayers moved him, though. He's written into a story, participants with Jesus, bringing about a whole new creation. You are the sons and daughters of the Father. You are royalty. You are those written into the story of redemption. Like normal Nehemiah, he's about to get caught up in a story that is way too much for him. And in Nehemiah 2, we see this arising happening, because we can't just stay face to face in weeping and tears, or even in reflecting and sharing the prayers of our great intercessor. We are in a movement where our prayers lead us beyond our comfort zone to become the answer to our prayers. Is that right? That's who you are. Mission and justice. And lovers do crazy things. You get in the way of a mom or dad and you start messing with their children, and the love of God in a broken heart, they will do crazy things that no rational human should do. And that is you. And listen to Nehemiah 2. It says this, then I said to them, you see the trouble we are in. Friends, can you see the trouble we are in? How Jerusalem lies in ruins with its gates burned. Come, let us build the wall of Jerusalem that we may no longer suffer mockery. And I told them the hand of my God was upon us for good. And also the words the king had spoken to me. And they said, let us rise and build. So they strengthen their hands for good work. And Nehemiah says, we are his servants. We will arise and rebuild. Arise and rebuild. Arise and rebuild. I'm speaking to your spirit. Arise and rebuild. Arise and rebuild. And he went to the king, and the king said, what do you want? Friends, what do you want? Creation is groaning. And you're groaning because you've been pressed so hard. But then the spirit in you is groaning, and the king's saying, what do you want? And you're saying, my tears say everything that I want. It's being born in the secret place. Arise and rebuild. And so you know what? They started to move into action. I am so thankful for how many elder mothers and fathers I see in this room. We cannot and we will not do this without you. Do not stop now. There is a generation that needs you. Hey? There's a generation that needs you. Don't stop now. This is the heart of our God. It is a family kingdom. And so they started to build, and it says there was war all around them. There's these nasty dudes named Sanballat and Tobiah. Man, I want to punch these guys in the face. So freaking sick of Sanballat and Tobiah. But you know what? They pressed on and they built the wall to half. And some of you would not be here. I want to commend you now, and I want to say, from the Father, thank you for putting your hand to the wall that lies in ruins. Thank you for letting your tears and your prayers lead you to people. People are the treasure of God, amen? People are the inheritance of Jesus. And so you've been building, and you got the wall to half, and then Sanballat and Tobiah came with all the fury of hell down upon them. And listen to the strategy that they bring. I have no idea where I am in my notes, and I do not care. The only thing I have to be done by a certain amount of time. Amen. You guys doing all right? You with me? Okay, cool. So, Sanballat and Tobiah, punks. Okay. In the story of Nehemiah, there's these non-Jewish Persian officials who resist God's people. Can I get an amen? And they hate God's purposes to restore the earth. They resist. And their tactics are really, really clear. They're the same tactics from the very beginning of the age. To discourage and diminish the people of God. There is an onslaught of discouragement that I cannot even fully describe. A diminishment. You feeble Jews. You are so small and weak. Oh, what you're building, a fox could walk on and topple. What is it anyways? Will you really rebuild? Will you actually sacrifice? The discouragement starts to assault their character, their competence, their heart, their motivation. There is like this deep assignment of discouragement against them. And I don't know if you have experienced that, but wow, that is real. The tactic and aim of this discouragement is in Nehemiah 6:9. They were trying to frighten us. Fear is discouragement. Fear is diminishment. To get you so disappointed and discouraged that you will what? Yes. You guys are awesome. I'm loving this. Their hands will get too weak for the work. Everyone say too weak for the work. And the wall will not be completed. That was the aim of the enemy. If we keep assaulting them over and over and over, they will get too weak for the work and they will quit. We have an enemy who aims to kill, steal, and destroy, whose schemes are to oppose God's purposes and his dream to restore creation. As a pastor of a local congregation, as a leader who stewards God's kingdom in a city, I have witnessed and walked with an onslaught of discouragement on the hearts of people, the people of God and leaders, unlike I've ever seen in these last few years. You have been assigned. This conference is wonderful, but Jesus the King has given you sealed orders to a place that lives very mundane, is incredibly discouraging. You don't know if you'll ever get this wall beyond half its height, and the diminishment of the enemy has come down upon you. But we need you on the wall wherever Jesus has you weeping and praying. We need you on the wall. But Sanballat and Tobiah do not mess around. There are so many factors, pressures, challenges, circumstances, relational pain and crisis. And then some of us have reached a Nehemiah 4:10 moment. This is what I want to say to you. Nehemiah 4:10 says this, and the strength of the laborers is giving out, and there's so much rubble we cannot rebuild the wall. I am talking to you if you have been praying for a friend or a family member and you're like, I don't know if anything is gonna ever happen. I am talking to you if you've been laboring in your city for unity or racial reconciliation and you see so many fractures you don't even know where to start. I'm speaking to you if you're a foster parent. We have many in our congregation, and they just don't know if they can take another heartbreak where they've been assigned to rebuild the wall in love. If you're a student praying for your classmates and you see no one coming to Jesus, or maybe you saw a little and the wall feels like it's half built, but nothing's happening after that. You started a prayer space in your city, and there was initially a little bit of excitement, and now where is anybody want to pray anymore? And you just have the enemy whispering in your ear over and over and over. And you start to say things like this in your head. Does it even matter what I do? Was it all in vain? I don't have what it takes to do this anymore. I want to quit. We're going in circles, getting nowhere. I'm not even sure who I can trust. My heart is broken and it's not worth it. We've done something, but it's not good enough. It's just too much. I don't even know where to start. And you feel exhausted and discouraged, and you're standing in front of a pile of rubble and a half-built wall. But I want to tell you that the pressure that's coming is productive. It's like birth pangs. It's been forming something in you. Something so deep that is actually authority, which is the conformity to Christ. Normal Nehemiah and their friends, the pressure of the enemy itself has become the tool of your transformation, and the birth pangs are not ending in nothing. They're productive, and something's being born of a new creation through you. And Nehemiah responds in the next verse in 14. And he says this, remember the Lord who is great and awesome. I want to call you today to remember the Lord face to face. Remember the moments he has met you. Remember when he called you by name. Remember when he invited you to drink the cup of his pain. Remember the promises. Over and over I've heard the Lord say, stand firm. Do not be moved. Give your heart fully to the work of the Lord, and your labor will not be in vain. And I'm like, I don't even know if I have a heart to give to you anymore, Lord. because I feel like I've lost it. And I heard Jesus saying over and over, if you'll just give me your heart, you won't lose it, Adam. Give me your heart today, and give me your heart tomorrow, and give me your heart the next day, and you won't lose your heart. Friends, the pressure is great, but the Lord is saying, come back to remember the Lord great and awesome. Feast yourself on his faithfulness. When I start to be discouraged, will we ever be unified? He takes me back to when a prayer room in one suburban church turned into 180 days, and they passed a baton for 52 weeks, and we covered an entire year of prayer in our little city. I wonder if we could do it in a nation. Well, when I go back and feast on his faithfulness, I remember maybe the church can be unified, though all I see is disunity. When my heart breaks over racial reconciliation, I remember 10 days before Juneteenth, right after George Floyd was killed, my wife had a vision of 10-mile dividing line, an entire human prayer chain on it. And we had 10 days to get the word out. We don't even know that many people. And 5,000 people showed up socially distanced on the racial dividing line. Did that do everything? Absolutely not. I continue to weep and go, I'm standing in a bunch of rubble and I don't even know where to start. But God says, just remember what I've done. When I'm broken over the students, we just saw in our city prayer walking last Saturday, 250 schools. We got our feet on the campuses in Kansas City. Well, there's 600 more to go. But God says, feast on my faithfulness. Remember the Lord who's great and awesome, and fight for your brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers. Fight, he says. And he has a strategy for that. Now, in 24/7, we have a strategy. They're gonna end up finishing the wall in 52 days. That is insane, by the way. And we're gonna take 52 weeks and we're gonna pray across this nation. And I believe God is releasing a strategy. He's placing people at the exposed places of the wall. And it says 40 next tos in Nehemiah. But it says they were spread out on the wall and scattered and they felt alone. Does anyone feel like that in your place? But it says when you hear the trumpet call, come there and our God will fight for us. I want to say something to you. Right now, if you are piled in rubble all around you, there's so much discouragement and diminishment, you do not know where to start. I feel the jealousy and zeal of my father. The enemy is picking on his kids. And it says, for a long time I was silent in Isaiah 42. But now, like a man of war, or like a mother who gasps and pants and gives birth and lays waste mountains, I will now march out for them, and the zeal of the Lord will accomplish this. A bruised reed he won't break. A smoldering wick he will not put out. We get discouraged and we lose heart. But listen to Isaiah 42. He will not be discouraged over your city. He will not be discouraged over your campus. He is the only courageous one, friends. I can feel the fire of the Lord, and he's done with his children getting picked on. He is taking issue with Sanballat and Tobiah over your soul. And listen to me now. Just like a woman giving birth, they say the moment when she wants to quit, I got to witness this 3 times. Give it up for my wife. Yes? The moment when she wants to quit is the moment of transition, when pushing and birth comes. Please listen to me, friends. With Jesus' own love and courage, don't give up now. Don't give up now. Galatians 6 says this, do not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time you will what? Reap a harvest of righteousness. Stand firm. Do not be moved. Give your heart, even if it's a beat up, broken heart. Give it fully to the Lord. That's all he needed. He never needed a lot of people. He never needed strong people. He just needed people with a heart that would be given to Jesus. And he says, your labor will not be in vain. It's impossible. Faithfulness is our job and fruitfulness is in his. Amen? And there was a day this year that I wanted to just throw in the towel. Actually, a lot of them. But I feel the zeal of our Father. Don't give up. Don't give up right now. I need to call up a couple of mothers because I can't land this one on my own. Aisha and Casey, come on. You gotta have mothers to birth something. Okay. I wanna sit quietly in the presence of the Lord. These guys are awesome. Can we close our eyes? Friends, I believe the Spirit is groaning in us. I want to call you back to where you're weeping the tears of Jesus. Where have you seen the world in ruins? Where have you shared in the face of Jesus' suffering? Where have you drank the cup that cost him his life on a cross? Nehemiahs, I'm calling you now. Cupbearers of the King, servants with weeping hearts who pray night and day and get called out of whatever they thought they were doing into the grand story of God. But your heart has been beat up. Even now I'm permissioning the travail. It is allowed to get messy in here. Come, Spirit of God. Only you can burst the kingdom in this nation. In another election year of polarization, with all the pain that's coming, we want to carry your heart. I want to invite you, when you feel led, to arise, saying, I want to go put my hand to the wall again. Even if all I see is rubble. As the Spirit moves you to arise and rebuild, and some of your arising may be on your face, that's great. That's usually the best place to arise. But as the Lord leads you, I want to call you to arise, and I want to pray over you. We're going to go into Isaiah 62 a little while, but I am going to commission you with the great anointed Isaiah 61 rebuilder. For there is one who's anointed, and you are his body, and he has no body now but yours. If new creation is going to come forward, it is going to come through the sons and daughters of God, through their tears and their prayers, through a spear in one hand and a trowel in another. You will not stop building even while you're fighting. You will not stop building even while you're fighting. Your greatest warfare is just this: don't give up. Don't give up. You can make it to the end if you just see his face. You can make it to the end if you just see his face. You can make it to the end. Fix your eyes on Jesus, who endured suffering and the cross for the joy set before him. For what you're doing is giving him his inheritance. Worthy is the Lamb to receive the reward of his suffering. And now as you've arisen, I am praying, Spirit of God is upon you. He has anointed you to bring good news to the poor. He has anointed you and sent you to bind up broken hearts, to proclaim freedom for captives, to release from darkness prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of the vengeance of our God. He has taken issues with his enemies. He is going to comfort those who mourn and provide for those who grieve, bestow a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy. Right now this is coming. The oil of joy instead of mourning, a garment of praise instead of despair. No more despair. You will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord, and you will listen. Rebuild ancient ruins. Restore places devastated. Renew ruined cities devastated for generations. And so just pray this Nehemiah prayer with me. Strengthen my hands. Strengthen my heart. I will arise. I will rebuild. Strengthen my hands, God. Strengthen my heart. I will arise. I will rebuild. Release in me the Spirit of God for the glory of Jesus. And now there's a few in here, if you'll raise your hand, you are so discouraged and diminished that you don't feel like you can even pray this prayer. Would you raise your hands? And I want people around you to hold your arms up, and I want these guys to pray for you. I believe right now a life-transforming moment is going to happen for you. The Father has taken issue with the enemy who has tried to take you out. And today is the day of the vengeance of our God. God will arise and his enemies will be scattered. Will you just pray?